Hello and welcome back to yet another episode of the Point 99 podcast, Season 2, Episode 4. The Point 99 podcast is a running podcast made by runners for runners. If you're new to running, we hope to have topics and discussions that will help you along whatever path your journey is taking. Or for any seasoned runners, maybe some stories that will have you empathizing with our experiences. Whether it's lessons we've learned during our own journeys, embarrassing stories, or heartstring pulling moments. We hope you'll stick with us while we try to share some good vibes, motivation, and positivity. And hopefully we can have a laugh along the way. As with every episode so far this season, I want to give a massive thank you to everybody for the amazing feedback on episode 3 with Tanya Carmona. Not just to myself and the podcast, but also the feedback you've been giving to Tanya. But moreover, the feedback that is continually rolling in for both episode 1 and episode 2 with Emma and Mike. Thank you once again to Tanya for joining me for episode 3. I can't wait to get you back on in the future. We find out how you get on with Ultra X Jordan. But now that my voice has recovered from my chat with Tanya and from episode 3, let's get on to episode 4 with Patrick Watkins. For anyone who doesn't already follow Patrick, he is an insane runner. He's currently on a run streak of 2,073 days. That's mind-blowing, saying that I couldn't do more than 12 days, but he's still going strong. How long it lasts, time will tell. But we do cover it in the discussion, which I'll jump to after I cover the happenings from the weekend and the week previous. After a fairly quiet week for week 3 of the road to Amsterdam, I found a little bit more of my mojo for week 4. With 3 normal runs, a visit to parkrun, and a long run bagged, I felt a lot happier. I felt like I'd achieved more, and I just generally felt more motivated to get it done. And with parkrun in mind, I was very close to beating my 5k PB once again. Unfortunately, however, the course was 0.15 short, so whether I would have taken that time, not so sure. Probably would have done though, because it is a timed event. It should be 5k, wouldn't have really been my issue, but I would have had to see at the time. But I was a lot happier. I had a lot left in my tank. The day was really good for temperature. There wasn't much in the way of wind, head or tail. So, I mean, given how I've been progressing, maybe in a few weeks' time, maybe at the next Pacer week for parkrun, I might be able to get that sub 20 or very close to it, at least beating the PB. But fingers crossed, we'll see how we go. All my other runs, however, they felt good. 15Ks, 10Ks, depending on the weather, was depending on the mood. But I felt a lot happier. Apart from the long run, I hadn't really planned how far I was going to go. I hadn't planned my route. I hadn't even really carb loaded the day before. So I felt a little bit worn out, a little bit tired on Sunday. Didn't feel like I achieved my best for the long run, but I got it done. That's all I can ask for, and that's really all I'm going to be doing for the next few weeks until it ramps up on the road to Amsterdam. Week 5, however, will see 0 miles ticked off. Unfortunately, I had a biopsy yesterday, so I'm recording on Tuesday because I know I'm not going to be doing anything this week other than volunteering at parkrun as either a marshal or as the official photographer. But yeah, as I say, biopsy yesterday. Got some stitches. The stitches are going to be in for 10 days. The location where they are, they're going to be prone to splitting, bursting. If I try to do any running or exercise, the guidance I have says not to do anything. Keep my fitness and my exercise to a minimum, at least for a few days. So yeah, that's what I'm doing. I knew it was coming, so I've kind of built in a rest week. It's not really deload. I'm not doing any miles, so I'm not going from doing distance to doing slightly less distance. I'm going from full on to full stop. But as I say, I knew it was coming. I'll come back stronger in week 6, at least fingers crossed. But yeah, it's the way things go. Onto a member of the 99 community, the running community as a whole, and Kaylee Webster, the Happy Diet. I want to shout out the absolutely amazing performance she blasted out of the weekend, an absolute Wonder Woman performance at the Highlander One Last Stand event. She did a truly mind-blowing distance of 81.76 kilometers in just shy of 12 hours, so 11 hours and 55 minutes. I think it was like a timed event anyway, but I don't know how many laps that is. I can't remember from her story, but that is a distance and a half to be doing in that time. But Kaylee is a trooper when it comes to doing ultras and any form of endurance event. I really can't wait to see her again, meet her at the Loch Ness 24 and see how many miles she can pump out for her team. She's not unfortunately on my team, on Team 1, but it'll be amazing to see one of the Dibbers teams, or all of the Dibbers teams for that matter, absolutely smashing the event, because we have some phenomenal endurance athletes going to be in attendance. So let's see how we get on. We're so close to jumping into our discussion with Patrick Watkins, but one last shout out before we get there. And this time it's for another member of the Who Dropped the Dibber team, but the host of the Press Play and Run podcast, Ryan Miller, otherwise known as Scottish_runner. And it's just to follow on from his announcement last night that he's going to be running the London Marathon in 2024. Having covered some of Ryan's story for his first marathon at Edinburgh, I'm going to be fully backing Ryan for his push for London. He's definitely, hands down, going to beat his PB. I have no doubt about that, but he is doing it for an absolutely amazing charity. Being that he has worked in education, that he has kids of his own, he's going to be running for the Place to Be charity. It's a children's mental health charity working with pupils, families and staff across UK schools. So as I say, given Ryan's background, it's an absolutely spot on charity for him. And I just want to encourage everybody to follow Ryan if they aren't already. Follow his story and give any pennies that you have spare towards his push for the London Marathon if you can at all. But we will give regular updates on how his training and fundraising is going. And relax. So on to the discussion with Patrick Watkins. This recording took place around about a month ago. So before we jump into it, there is a reference to the London Marathon ballot, and that's why I mentioned Ryan just prior to this. Unfortunately, neither myself nor Patrick were successful in gaining a ballot entry, but it's one of the harder marathons to get a ballot entry into. So fingers crossed in future years we'll both be successful and I can run with Patrick at some point. But into the discussion itself, I absolutely loved speaking to Patrick. I can't wait to speak to him again. As with Mike, Emma and Tanya so far this season, I really only scratched the surface of Patrick's story. As I say, he has a truly phenomenal run streak on the go at the moment, and I can't see that stopping anytime soon. A very quick warning here, however, there will be a reference to suicide in the mental health portion in the later stages of the interview. So if you aren't comfortable, please skip that section. We don't go into any detail. It's just very interesting to hear Patrick's experience with the subject. I'm not going to say too much because it's part of his story and I want you to hear it from him firsthand. But yeah, it's just a slight warning there that if you aren't comfortable, please skip. But the rest of the interview, the whole interview as a whole, in fact, is so interesting. I can't wait to have Patrick back and to do more justice for his story, find out more about his run streak, everything that goes into Patrick. But We'll get into it just now. Let me know what you think. Let Patrick know what you think, but enjoy. Just like Mike, the polefoot ultra runner from episode 2, my next guest is equally one of the biggest supporters, not only for the podcast, but for myself as well. With regular doses of motivation, praise, and positivity in both accounts' comments and DMs, he really is a true gentleman of the Instagram running community. To quote his own website and blog, every day is an opportunity to make a positive change in your life. Or in his case, a positive change and inspiration to the lives of others, including my own. From inspirational feats of insanity, like starting a run streak all the way back in November of 2017, which is still going strong, all the way through to smashing half and full marathons, while maintaining that more than epic run streak. There's a lot to unpack with this legend, so let's get into it and welcome P Watkins _13 or Patrick Watkins to the podcast, fresh and bright from his Maryland morning run. How's it going, Patrick?
Good, thank you for that, and for the intro. That was probably a bit too nice, but
first time as well.
Yeah, that was good.
So we just had a very, very brief pre-recording chat. So you've had your run this morning, yeah?
I did. That's usually kind of how I start my day. I work from home, so it makes it easier. But yeah, so I did a little bit more than I think like 13K. So seven miles. Yeah. So it's a good start.
And the weather's good for it. It's not too hot, not too cold.
It was okay. It's a little humid now, and the last few days we've had smoke and haze from the wildfires in Canada, which is it's 1,000 miles from me. And however the wind is working, it's kind of hazy and smoky here, so you can smell it too. It's kind of odd. It's weird.
That's we've had wildfires, but nothing probably to the size that's creating to be going all that distance. That's insane.
You should look at the maps of Canada it's like the area that it's covering. It's amazing. It's crazy.
Wow. Well, same as Mike, I've provided you with the questions in advance of the interview, so it's given you some time to have a little bit of a think, but hopefully not too much, because we want it to be natural and not overly scripted. But we're going to jump straight into it, because I don't have anyone to bounce off of anymore. It's just ourselves. So we'll jump into question 1, if that's okay. Mm-hmm. But we are gonna get to your run streak, the insanity that is 2,045 days. I want to say today.
That's right. Yeah,
it is. Mm-hmm. But by the time this episode comes out, it should be 2073. So yeah. That's insane. I couldn't do more than 12 days, let alone 2073. But let's first talk about yourself, the man behind the number. Can you give the listeners a little bit of an insight as to who Pat is and how your running journey kind of first began? Maybe some highlights that have come along that way, and well, maybe just before your more recent marathon, which we'll get to in the next question.
Okay. Yeah. So basically, I think growing up, I played sports and everything. I would have always viewed running as kind of a punishment, or a way to get ready for sports, but not really as a sport by itself, or something to do just for running. But then really I guess it was probably 2002, I had a friend from school that got a charity place in Boston. And I'd never watched the marathon or really paid much attention to it before, but I watched it on TV that year. And I kind of just thought it looked cool, and it would be something that I might want to try. And kind of, if he can do it, I could do it, because I don't think he wasn't a runner by any means. He just I don't know why he even tried to get a charity spot, to be honest, because I don't think he ran before that. So that kind of, I guess, planted the seed to maybe get into it. And then in 2005, I signed up for my first marathon, which was also my first race ever. I'd never done any races before that. And I didn't, it was terrible planning because I didn't do any races in the lead up to it either. So my first race ever was, I think it was probably 30 or 35,000 people.
Wow.
It was a big marathon here. So, and then of course, I think my longest run in the training before it was maybe 12 miles. And then I did everything wrong on the day of the race too. I tried gel at mile 13 that I never tried because I didn't bring anything with me, anything else.
Yeah.
And I spent like the last half of the marathon walking and just kind of being sick. So from there, I kind of, I didn't want it to end like that. I think my time was like 5:49. So still, for a first time, I was like, not worried about the time at all.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the next day I knew that I wanted to go back and kind of do better because I didn't want it to be my only experience of it. So then I did the same marathon the next 3 years, and each year I did better and better. And then I did, I think it was in 2009, I did another marathon. In the meantime, I had done a couple half marathons, I think here and there.
Yeah.
But I got my time down to, I think, 4:10. And I thought I could never do better than that. So I kind of put it out of my head. I still ran like casually for several years. And then in 2016, I lost like 35 pounds of weight. And obviously that helps with everything, but it helps with running specifically. So between that and then starting my streak in 2017, kind of from there, like my confidence grew. I was getting faster, and obviously consistency helped with that. So I decided to start doing races again. And I did my first marathon in 10 years, I think, was in 2019. And I think cut off another 40 minutes off my time. So it was like 3:29.
Oh man.
So then I did a couple more since then. And my first 8 marathons, I did better each time. So I was like, that was something I was really proud of. And then last year in Copenhagen was the first one I didn't get a PB, and I missed by 1 second. And then in Philadelphia last year, I kind of went backwards. So, and then that kind of leads to now. So
throughout the initial marathon experience, had you learned to then train more effectively for it, or were you kind of just ticking things along?
Yeah, I didn't really train effectively at all. I mean, even until 2 years ago, I never did a training plan for a race. I always just did whatever I wanted to run on the day. And then I would, kind of set targets and say, by this date, I want to have run, say, 10 miles or 12 miles or 16 miles. And that's kind of how I did it. Just kind of, I think, took the pressure off me to do a certain thing every day.
Yeah.
And I mean, it worked, but I think I had also a lot of room to work with in terms of improving my time. So
I think that's quite good though, because if you're going out and you're doing what you feel comfortable with on that particular day, there's less pressure on you than sometimes a plan can give, especially in your early days of marathon running. Mm-hmm. So I still follow a similar method to what you do or you did. I go out and I see how I feel on that particular day. It's not that I'm not going to do an interval session or a tempo session. I'll just decide on that day, I feel like I've got enough in me to go do X, Y, or Z.
Right.
So hand in hand with that, though, you also mentioned dropping a sizable amount of weight there as well. Mm-hmm. Was that driven by the running, or did that just kind of, again, come hand in hand with it all?
I think it was kind of all combined. I think it started I had a doctor's appointment and he told me to lose, I think it was some random amount. It was like 7 pounds or something. Yeah. And he gave me a plan to do it. And I didn't really like the plan that he gave me. So I was like, I'll lose the weight, but I'm going to do it kind of my way.
Yeah.
So I kind of changed my diet myself and stuff like that. And then I probably was doing a 5K, I'd say like 3 or 4 times a week. I was running 3 or 4, maybe 5 times a week.
Yeah.
And basically within a few months, I mean, and if within a few months I had, lost a significant amount. And obviously that helps to keep going and kind of, make me want to keep going. So
especially if when you're losing weight, as you say, you're seeing times tumble, you're seeing you're getting faster, and it just helps your mental being of running of I'm doing great, so I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing.
Yeah, it was like a kind of a direct correlation between the weight loss and the running. So like as the weight loss happened, the running got better, and they kind of feed off of each other to make you keep, you see improvements in both. So yeah, that was like a really big year for me in terms of everything, just, kind of from then till now.
Spot on. As it's from then till now is even though it's quite a number of weeks past already, that now is Copenhagen 2.0, which I think anyone that's following your story knows that it wasn't quite, especially on the day, it wasn't quite what you had expected from it, and you made a few comments in the heat of the moment that don't necessarily stand up just now, but they do say it's wonderful, wonderful Copenhagen. But it's not that so much for yourself, is it? Can you tell us a little bit why it didn't go as smoothly as you had hoped, and kind of maybe touch on what you'd actually hoped to gain out of Copenhagen. Mm-hmm. Copenhagen in the first instance, and then actually what came about as a result.
Okay. Actually, I thought you were going to be singing the song.
I had planned it, but you see, I get very kind of tongue-tied, and yeah, this is where Steve was very good. I would bounce off him, and I would have a little bit more of a stumbling block then.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was, so I did Copenhagen last year with my friend that I met through Instagram, Rune, and he had at the beginning of COVID invited me to go run it. So kind of once I had the chance, I did it, and last year was great, and I decided to go back this year. Unfortunately, he had a serious knee surgery like a week before I arrived, so he didn't run the race, and last year he paced me too. But this year we were running separate anyway. But yeah, I mean, the training for this last one was, I think, about as perfect as it could have been. I felt good about everything. I didn't have any real issues. I think I missed, or only one day I didn't do what the plan said. Like everything else was perfect. And I had in the past struggled with, soreness, like muscle soreness and stuff like that everyone kind of deals with. I didn't even really have any of that this time. It was, I don't really know how else to say it. It was, I thought, great. And then I was actually when I got to Copenhagen or got to Denmark, I was kind of really shooting for 3:15, and I felt like it was a pretty good chance. And I think my stated goal, I think the one that I told kind of everyone publicly, was 3:20.
Yeah.
I actually kind of was overconfident. I thought that was like a definite. And then, the few days before, I know I probably did a bit too much.
You did a lot of walking.
Maybe like I think the last 2 or 3 days before I was better. And I think I kind of got control of myself and kind of calmed down some. But yeah, the several days before I was doing way too much. But I don't want to use that as a reason to why I didn't do as I planned. But the race itself, I mean, it was the temperatures were a little bit warmer, I think, than exactly ideal. But
yeah.
I started out fine. I was kind of on pace for, I think, maybe 3:15 for the first half. And then once the sun fully came out. There was really nowhere to hide on the streets. Everyone would go to wherever the shade was, if there was any on the street. So it was tough. And I think I hung on that pace for a little bit. And then with, I guess it's probably like 10 miles or 15K. I really struggled from there. So, yeah, it was the immediate aftermath. I was like really disappointed with not the time, not the overall time, because I, kind of understanding where my marathon time used to be and where 3:40 was, which was how I finished. I wasn't really disappointed with that, but just the difference between what I finished at and what I was expecting, I think kind of, was a little disappointing.
Well, it's quite a similar story from like a lot of the times we speak to other runners and you find out about disappointments. And I think Ryan covered it quite well in our discussion with him. He was quite honest with, this is my goal. I have my B and my C, but he was staying open minded, especially being his first one. But a lot of more seasoned marathon runners, if something doesn't go quite right, they are more disappointed. Not in the fact that the time that they've got, but they hold themselves accountable. I wanted this, and you kind of build yourself up towards that number, don't you? And
yeah, definitely.
Certainly, that's how I was with my first one, and I think that's the best advice we can give anyone is, if it's your first marathon, don't worry about time.
Mm-hmm.
Go and have a good time, and just enjoy the moment, and then build upon it, like you have done. You've ticked off and ticked off and ticked off, but I would say you're that cusp now of that's insanely fast paces. And to then get PBs is harder than, let's say, for myself. I can keep working that time down to a finite point, but you have to do so much more effort to get that time down. And it does go into something that you got on your website as one of your big goals. But we'll cover that in a second. But yeah, it was really interesting following, especially in the run up to the marathon, because for anyone that doesn't know, myself and Patrick talk on a kind of semi-regular basis, and on the run up to the days leading up to Copenhagen, I had to message him and say, stop walking so much. You're going. He was doing tens upon thousands of miles of steps. Sorry, not miles, steps. And it was calm down. You're doing a bit too much. But you were driven, demented, weren't you? In the hotel, you didn't want to go down and just relax.
Right.
It wasn't you. Your form of relaxing is going out and seeing the sights.
And just being, if I was at home, it might have been different, because you can just do what you do at home, or, you're more comfortable. But sitting in a hotel room with, a chair that's completely uncomfortable to sit in, or a bed.
Yeah.
And then it's like perfectly sunny outside. It's beautiful outside. And you're kind of in a city that you've never been. I mean, I wasn't in last year, but haven't spent much time in. It was tough. But yeah, I did take your advice those couple of days. I went and sat on a bench for kind of as long as I could, which I think was like an hour. But
that's good though, because I'd be about 10 minutes and I'd been off myself. But it was Copenhagen the first time. Was that your first international marathon?
No, I did Munich in 2019.
Right. Okay. So it wasn't that you weren't used to being on foreign territory, foreign soil running.
So when I did Munich and when I did Copenhagen last year, I got there like 3 days before, which I think was perfect, because you get used to the time difference, jet lag, if there's any, and then you only have to be kind of good for 2 or 3 days in terms of your eating and your rest and doing stuff like that. But if anything, I think that's probably the biggest thing I would change from this past Copenhagen, was getting there 8 days before. It just worked out with my schedule here. So I didn't have to do that, but I did. And that's probably the biggest thing I would change. I mean, the stuff on race day kind of happens to anyone, really, right? So, I mean, it's not, looking back, I'm not necessarily disappointed on how I did in the race, because I
It's still
still
a phenomenal time.
I still think I like really fought through at the end too, because I think in marathons before I would have just walked the whole way. I wouldn't even have tried to run those last parts, but
Yeah.
I tried to run as much as I could. So yeah, it is what it is, I guess. You know, we'll see if I can ever get back to the PBs.
I think that they'll definitely come. It's with the amount of running you do, especially. But
Yeah, that's
we'll
true.
cover again. We'll cover that in a moment. But so I'm going to go back to your website again on this one, and something you mentioned in the DMs I've kind of pointed towards there, and your future goals or cancelling thereof. So you mentioned that you weren't entirely sure you want to run another marathon again, and that I think that was said in the heat of the moment. But you have since committed to run London with myself if we're lucky in the lotto. But we will know by this by the point in time this comes out, we'll know what's happening. But I know for the fact that it was something said in the moment. So what is next for yourself? Are you going to push once again to try and get a Boston spot? Try and bring the qualifier down? Maybe even go for a charity spot, or maybe take a break and maybe hit the ultra scene or triathlon?
Yeah, when I said I would never run a marathon again, I think I really meant it when I said it. But I think I kind of felt the same way for probably a couple of weeks after that. I think I've since, definitely calmed down on that a little bit. I'll definitely run more hopefully more marathons. My next scheduled one is I do have a place in Chicago in October. I think from right now, I think it's 100 days. I just got the thing today. It's 100 days till race day today. So I need to start training soon if I'm doing that. I'm kind of going back and forth right now on deferring it or not. But
I mean, you need to go. It's more so because Hannah Gifford, a previous guest of ours, is going to be there to pick up her 6 stars.
That's right. Yeah, I know. It's I got in through the lottery. It's like that's not it's one of the easier ones, I think, for the lottery of the majors. But yeah, that's my next planned one. And like I said, I'm kind of back and forth on running it. I might still go if I don't run. Because it's only I think like a 2-hour flight for me. So it's not too bad of a trip. I already have a hotel and everything. Eventually I will do an ultra. I'm just not sure. I kind of want to keep sticking to marathons and half marathons for now and maybe try to get a little bit faster. And in terms of like a Boston qualifier, I guess that's maybe like the ultimate goal for me. Right now, I just got into a new age group last year. So I added 5 minutes to my qualifying time. So my qualifying time is 3:10 right now.
Yeah.
But I think when it goes to 45, when I get to 45, it goes up by 10 minutes. It's not a 5 minute jump. So that would be 3:20. So I kind of need to either stay where I am for the next 4 years, time wise, or I need to get 10 minutes faster.
I mean, I don't think it's for knowing your like following your Strava and your kind of daily streaks as well. I don't think that's out of the realms of possibility. It's just like you say, it's overcoming that obstacle of, do I really want to do it?
Right. Yeah, I think it's with the streak, it's kind of like I need to figure out how to train best while keeping the streak going, basically, because I think my easy days during a training cycle, this last one I would do like 8 or 10K on the days that, and it would be like very low intensity. Yeah. So I like felt better about them, but yeah, that's probably what I need to change in terms of if I'm actually going to go for a Boston qualifier, is I need to do like 2K on the easy days.
Just a small bite size, and what a small bite size run.
Right. So we'll see. I mean, that's the ultimate goal. If it ever happens, we'll see if it, I think I'm okay if it doesn't too, but we'll see.
Now, are there any other marathons? I didn't put this question to you, but any other marathons, home or international, that you would be interested in as well that might sway you one way or the other to kind of so say, actually, no, I am going to go do this one if you got a place in it, if it was a maybe a ballot.
Right. Yeah, I mean the all of the world majors are not really, I don't need to do them. I don't need the 6 star.
It
I
doesn't
mean,
drive you. Yeah.
it's great. It's great. I think people that are doing it are great and stuff like that. But I don't really love big races like that. I'd rather it be 2 or 3 thousand people kind of thing instead of 40 or 45,000. It's just too much. Not even just the race itself, but just everything around the race, the expo, being in the city for that long
Mm-hmm.
with that many people, and the start times are all different with the waves and stuff like that. Any other race, but in terms of other marathons, I don't have really any. I'd like to do Berlin and London. Like I know those are majors, but and they're kind of hard to get into, but those are probably the only other two marathons that I guess if I had a list, I would have on it.
So, seeing as I have the top on, Loch Ness wouldn't drive you. It's
I
not
would.
that many people, and it's quite quiet.
There's other ones that I would do definitely, but yeah, I mean, I'm kind of I kind of keep my goals or goal races kind of short term.
Yeah,
So like I might just decide that I want to do whatever one in the next year, and I'll just look to see if I can get in it, basically.
it's quite
Um,
fluid. You're not you're
yeah,
not you're not keeping yourself rigid to a set plan. It's fluid. Of
exactly,
actually, I've got some free time. This one works into my schedule. I can go for that.
exactly, right.
Yeah, spot on. I would say to anyone that does fancy doing the Loch Ness marathon, I've mentioned it before. It is spot on, and it doesn't normally sell out super fast. So if you're interested, have a
I
look.
will. I'll definitely let you know. Yeah.
We are gonna move on to something that we have mentioned a few times there, and you spoke about it, about your easy runs and maybe changing how you do some of your runs to work with it or work around it. But it is a bit of a monster of a run streak. So can you tell us how you actually maintain such? You've maintained it for such a long time, um, but also touch on maybe some of your more memorable kind of favorite days. Now, I know personally that you've done a blog on your more memorable day. So if you want to just quote that, that's fine. Anyone that's read it already, you can maybe tune off for a second. But for a lot of people, just give an idea of how you've maintained it for so long and what are the highlights of running for 2073 days.
Yeah, I mean it. I think as boring as it sounds, I kind of try to do one day at a time. I mean, it's not anything that's too thought out. The original plan was just to do 40 days. It was a Runner's World thing. Runner's World magazine here has every year does kind of a challenge to do from Thanksgiving, which is like late November,
Yeah.
to New Year's Day. So it's about 40 days. And I tried it several years in a row, and I think I just kind of lost interest. And then finally in 2017, I was just like, I'm doing it this year, and I'm gonna stick it out. And once I got to the end of it, I just kind of decided to keep on going. And I honestly there haven't been many days since then that I ever really thought about stopping it, because it's just, I guess, become part of my routine. I mean, there were a couple periods more like in the last year or two where I went through like weeks at a time where my legs were just dead.
Yeah.
And I would wake up in the morning and my legs were sore, and I would still be in bed and I would feel how sore my legs are. And I'm just, but I guess at that point I was 4 or 5 years into it. So you kind of like learn to live with stuff like that or get through it
Yeah.
for a day and then string it to the next day, basically. But but yeah, I mean, it's in terms of maintaining it, I don't really view it as like maintaining anything. It's just, I just wake up and I go running. It's not, not too planned out really. Um, I guess in terms of like a few favorite days, they are from my blog, but last year I went to England and I ran with my friend Kristen at Hadrian's Wall,
Yeah.
which was cool. I'd wanted to visit there for a long time, and I think we ran maybe 8 or 10 miles. It was tough running, but it was fun. And he's like 2 weeks behind me in the streak, so he passed 2,000 like a few weeks ago. But yeah, it was just a really good day to be out there and doing that. Another day that kind of sticks out is at the beginning of COVID. I did like a virtual 5K a day. I mean, 5K an hour for as long as we could.
Yeah. Almost like a backyard ultra sort of style. Yeah.
Basically, yeah. I was just the two of us that did it. My friend Mark and I, and he did 12 hours, which was kind of the goal for both of us. I did 8, which, I'd never done anything like that. So I was, more than happy with, but, kind of, I was here, he was in England. So you can only do so much to like push each other on.
Yeah, exactly.
Virtually. Yeah. So kind of once I started feeling, I think I was like feeling dizzy and stuff. It's just not worth risking anything for just something that was meant to be fun. But it was a great day. And it kind of, I think like showed me the potential of the running community on Instagram too, that essentially random people will just start chatting and do stuff like that. I've met him in person now too, and we've run, so it's all good. But yeah. And then the other day that really sticks out as a favorite day was when I was in Germany to do that was when I went to do the Munich Marathon. I was born in Germany, and we left there when I was 4, I think. Yeah, 4. So I don't really remember a lot of it, but I went back to Heidelberg, which is where I was born, and just did like a short morning run, and kind of ended while it was still dark. And there's pictures on my blog, which I can't really describe the pictures, I guess, but
I would say anyone that is interested, go and look at the pictures. They are really, really something.
It was just a memorable like run for me because it, I guess just from being born there and kind of appreciating like that I had the chance to go back and do stuff like that. So yeah, those are probably the 3 like days that stick out. The rest of the days are not the rest, but so many of the other days are pretty basic, and they're not like flashy or
well, but there's one in particular, I think right at the start. It's not as positive of a memorable day. A memorable day for another reason, but I would encourage anyone to go and have a read of Pat's blog and his website. And then you are covering, to go back a few questions, you are covering your Copenhagen, and it might be out by the time this podcast out. It might not. He's still working on it.
I think it'll be out by the time this is out there, but I'm still working on it. I kind of tried to honestly forget about it for a couple of weeks. I did write down some notes like immediately after, which are kind of funny to look at now. But yeah, so I kind of let myself forget about it and then go back into it. So I'll hopefully have something up in the next couple of weeks.
It's sometimes the best, isn't it, to kind of almost forget about it, and then you look back and you remember certain other elements about the specifics of a marathon that you might have at the moment dismissed because your mindset was elsewhere.
Right. And I think it's good too to have my own initial reaction, and then to look at it now and kind of compare the two and somehow try to put it together and see what I can do in a future marathon. So yeah,
I look forward to reading that. It's honestly, I've only just subscribed to it with one of my accounts, but I've been reading through it, especially with the prep for this. And as a previous blogger myself, it's really enjoyable to read people's takes and how they write as well. And I'm really into the style of your writing as well.
Thank you.
Um, so I think we're on to the final main question at this point. And you haven't vetoed it, so we're going to talk about it because I'm going to try and talk to each guest, whether they're individuals or whether they're companies alike, about the subject. And it is a subject on that's maybe difficult for some people, but we're trying to open it up a little bit and make it more normal in a conversation, and that's mental health. So can you talk through how you stay so positive in your mindset towards, especially like the run streak and other people on the community, and maybe a little bit of an insight into your own mental health? Have you had any difficulties over the years, and any battles?
Sure. Yeah, I think like growing up, I was always like smiling and very positive anyway. So I think I kind of just always been like that. But I think in 2001, my best friend took his own life. And that kind of just obviously changes things. But I think struggled for like a few years after that. And then basically after that, I just really kind of made it a point to just be more positive to everyone. I think I was before, but I think it was more of like a concerted effort to do it.
Like a conscious decision. Yeah.
So I think that's kind of where it kind of, I mean, like I said, it was probably a couple of years after that where I just kind of started to be more positive. Not that I wasn't positive during those years, I think, at least outwardly. But I think that, that was probably the biggest struggle I had. And then, you kind of really never know what anyone else is going through. I think that's something that people say a lot, but, it's true. You don't really know at all. I mean, so, it's just
it's the whole Robin Williams effect, isn't it? Of you can be an outwards kind of facade of a very happy, jovial person, but then you don't know what the person's going up through internally or what's going on in their life. And I think having for yourself had a loss like that as well. I had a loss very similar, although he didn't take his own life, but a young guy that died, and you think, especially for myself, life's short. I think you realize at that point, life is short for a whole number of reasons. And if we can't be nice, it makes it even shorter, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's the whole Robin Williams thing is a perfect I guess bigger world example. Yeah.
So other than that, it's just, it's not just. I mean, we don't use that word, do we? Don't use just. But that's your real world kind of. So you've gone through something, and it's driven you, and kind of you're striving now to be just generally more positive.
That's probably the biggest example. I mean, I think there are a couple things that I forget. I wrote about it in one. I'm not to talk about my blog, but I wrote about it.
That's what you're here for. You can talk about it all you want as well.
I forget which post it was, but I think it was something about my weight, losing my weight. Growing up, I wasn't like bullied in terms of physically, but like just things about my weight and stuff like that. But one thing that always sticks out, and I put it specifically in the blog, was we used to have a carpool to school, like with some, other kids in the neighborhood. And one of the dads that drove used to call me Fat Trick.
God,
it's just horrible. I
shouldn't laugh.
But like thinking about it now, I was 8 or 9 years old.
Yeah.
And so I still do think about that, not in like a negative way in terms of, I mean, obviously I would never say that to anyone, but like, that's another thing that just I remember, that kind of has stuck with me. Like, why would anyone ever say that to really anyone?
Mhm.
But never mind a kid. So yeah, stuff like that, you know, comes up in my mind every once in a while to as like reminders, to just kind of be nice.
Yeah, you never know how much even the person probably thought they were just being funny, but you don't know
Right.
how words can affect people. Like you say,
Mhm.
you don't know what's going on in someone's life.
Right.
No, that's an interesting take on it. It's just something I'm as I say, I'm hoping that most guests, if not all guests, will talk about, and even small insights like that will encourage others to open up
Mhm.
and discuss it more normally. So it's not almost like a taboo subject that's kind of shied away from.
Right.
But as we approach the end here, it seems like it's gone very, very quickly.
Mhm.
I don't actually, has it gone very quickly? Have I just sped through this? Oh no, it's okay. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine. The time's fine. Same thing happened with Mike. I really enjoyed listening to him, and I've really enjoyed listening to yourself as well. And time just flies when you're
Mhm.
enjoying something. Um, but like I did with Mike, and I don't want to. I'm not here to steal the press play and run format. It's not quick fire questions, but every episode's slightly different. So episode one had a return of the shout outs. Now I don't know. I haven't recorded that one yet. Don't know
Mhm.
whether Emma's going to do that or not. But certainly for Tanya, it's going to be something different as well. But being that you are quite similar with Mike in the way that your running journey as well, and having run at the wall with the
Right.
ultras kind of and the backyard ultra, I could see you going into the Mike's territory. So I thought I'll stick with a similar sort of vein. So almost quick fire, not quite quick fire. Sorry, Ryan,
Yeah.
about this. Uh, Favorite event to date and why?
So I really liked Copenhagen specifically last year. In 2019 was a perfect day. But the my favorite event is it's an event called Trail Fest, and it's in Utah and Arizona here, out kind of out west here, and it's a 3 day event where there's a race each morning, and it's three like 10 miles, between 10 and 13 miles each morning,
Okay.
and it was touring, obviously it's Trail Fest, but it was just by three different national parks, and then you camp at a central place each night. And it's not like wild camping, so that was good for me too. So it was like I think we were on a baseball field. There were just tents. But yeah, it was just I think so different from what I've ever done. I think that's why I would say it's my favorite event, just because of how different it was.
Like
Yeah,
again, that
that
kind of
was
almost falls in the whole ultra style of life. But see, I'm gonna get you down this way. I'm gonna get you to ultra. So I think we caught a lot of that there before for just for the audience.
right.
Patrick did unfortunately drop out there for a second, but yeah, that your favorite race does sound like it's very similar to some of the stylings of an ultra. So we what bit by bit we might actually push you that direction. Ultimately, they do say that the longer you run, the better your shorter distances go. So if you run ultras, your marathons, which be effectively a shorter distance, would go faster.
It's a good point.
Okay, least favorite event and why?
The 2008 Philadelphia Marathon, I did not finish. I
Right.
started, and I I'd run a marathon about a month before, and I don't know if that affected anything, but it was well below freezing. It was really windy, and I think within 5 miles, I was walking because of my hip,
Okay.
and I was just like, this is not gonna I'm not gonna finish this. I'm not gonna walk for 21 miles. Um, and my brother was waiting for me. It was like one of those ones where there's a half at the same time. So the half, you run by the half runs the same course for the first half.
Yeah.
So I texted my brother and said, I'm dropping out, but basically I had to get back to the halfway point. So I walked whatever, 8 miles.
Wow.
And it was tough. I mean, just the idea of kind of quitting a race, even though I was injured. Um, yeah, I don't like it, but that's why I went back and did it 2 years ago. And that was kind of a redemption for me to get my personal best there. So
Spot on. No, that's a scary thought. Like so early on as well, and then having the idea of obviously being mentally suffering too to
right.
try to get that distance. So thankfully, it was almost like the Edinburgh out and back, but halfway point being half marathon.
Yeah, if it was point to point,
Be stuffed.
I don't know what I would have done. I probably would have tried to get a ride. I called an Uber.
So what if it's below freezing? What time of year is that run at?
It was like the third week of November.
Wow.
So it was kind of unseasonably that cold. But I mean, this past year or last year when I did Philadelphia, it was about as cold.
Yeah, so you get into that cusp of autumn, winter, fall,
Yeah,
winter.
I won't because of that last year and the 2008 one, even though 2021 was great. I'm not going back to Philadelphia for that race because it's too unreliable on the weather. You can't. I like a late fall one because training is not in the heat necessarily, but I can't trust the weather to be that good. So
what if I tell you though, Patrick, that I've got a very good friend of mine lives in Philadelphia, and I might be persuaded to go over and do it.
Well, we can talk then. We can talk.
I do actually have a friend stays in Philadelphia now. By the way,
maybe they have one. Maybe they have one in the spring.
Oh, let's see. Well, fingers crossed. I'll speak to Rob and see what he says. He can do some on the ground research for me. Your biggest goal that you still have for running or sporting bucket list?
Yeah, I think it's still probably Boston qualifier. But since that's a little bit off my radar right now because I don't think it's an immediate goal. I think that the just sub 320 is kind of my goal, just to go better than I have one more time at least.
So with Boston, I'm not entirely familiar with it. Can you get in with a lottery?
No.
No, it's purely just qualification.
Yeah, so you have to meet the qualifying time. Obviously, there's some charity places, but it's not like as many as London or I don't think as any of the other ones. But you have to meet the qualifying time, and the qualifying time gives you a chance to get in because there's a cap on the number of people that gets in with each age, I think, or maybe it's overall. But the last few years, everyone's gotten in though that's met the qualifying times. So that would be devastating.
One year that you get there.
Right. To get the qualifying time and then not get a place would be too much. Yeah. I would think they have to do something to put you in next year's.
Yeah, like a deferral.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't think they do. So yeah.
No.
We'll see.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. If money and travel were no issue, what event in the world would you like to tackle and why? And it doesn't necessarily, it's the same question that I put to Mike. It doesn't have to be an event that still takes place. You can go back in history as well.
I don't know. I mean, I used to do like internet searches for just like the best races, but none of those really stick out. There's one in I think it's called like Jungfrau. It's in Switzerland, like the Alps. It's in the Swiss Alps, and that's a marathon. That looks pretty cool. But yeah, other than that, I don't think there's really any. I mean, if we're not including qualifying times, we could or lotteries, then London or Berlin would be nice. Yeah. But hopefully that'll just happen anyway. But we'll see.
So you, by the sounds of it, like you were saying, the majors don't necessarily float your boat. If they happen, they happen, but it's not something that's driving your marathon journey. So it sounds more like Mike's journey. And again, you've not heard his episode yet, so it's almost like a spoiler for you. But he did say that for him, again, it's not specific events that he aims towards. It's more events that you can come away with a memory, like Control Alt running in the Arctic Circle, the half marathon in the Arctic Circle. And I know they do a marathon, and it's something that now I know about it, I'm like, that would be phenomenal to go and do.
I saw him do that. What was it, last weekend?
Yeah, a couple weekends ago. Yeah.
I hadn't heard of it either. That I think would be something I would want to do, something like that. Actually, the other one you mentioned, Mike, and I saw the ad for it the other day was the wall. I guess the registration's opening soon, or is open for next year.
It will be. Yeah.
That would be, if I ever do an ultra, that would be one that I think would kind of pique my interest because it just looks kind of cool. I know it's really tough. I'm sure.
Well, he did say it's very, very, very tough.
Yeah.
Both mentally and physically. But that's not. I think the more I get into running, and the more I tick off, I'm probably in the same sort of boat yourself. It's more about memories and seeing places, and sure, it would be great to run some of these majors, but they're not necessarily always in the most scenic or picturesque places. They're big cities. I would love to go to Japan. I've always wanted to go to Japan. I've been to London a few times. I would love to run in Berlin, but it's not the be all on end all. But then running in the Alps or somewhere would be phenomenal. Just,
I mean, it'd be really tough and things like that. But I think that would, obviously, any of the majors are probably memorable in their own right.
Yeah,
but you get different memories from doing kind of more obscure ones too.
Yeah.
Like I basically have zero interest in doing New York. I know that people love it, and some people say it's the best race because of the crowds and stuff like that. But I just don't think I'm not even going to apply for it. I don't think, that's just kind of how I view it. I don't know.
The impression I get about the whole New York vibe, though, is it's very Marmite, to use a very European British sort of product, and you either like it or you hate it. And I've had people that have been to New York and like, so vanilla. You see it on the TV so much, it's just so normal. And then you get other people who absolutely adore it, and they've run the marathon, and they have high praise for it. But I think I'm in the same boat as you. I would like to do it, but I'm not going out of my way to do it.
Right. Like if I in some way got, if I do Chicago, I got in Boston sometime, and then I did London and Berlin, then I might change and say, well, I want to do Tokyo and New York to get
the organizers came and approached you and says, here, have a free entry.
Yeah, exactly. Something like that.
That does happen. It does happen.
I know, but yeah.
Right, final one then. You don't have to answer this. It's a bit of a cheeky question, but your favorite 99 episodes so far. You don't have to tell us why, but do you have one?
I like all of them, honestly.
Good answer.
I think my favorite though is the one with Ryan. What was that episode? I don't know which number it was last year.
That's episode 9. That was episode 9, because episode 10 was finale, but also digesting how his marathon went from my perspective of like listening to his podcast.
Right. So it was cool because I think just I listened to his podcast too. So to kind of have all of you guys in the same conversation was cool. And I mean, it just sounded like you guys were having a great time too.
It was fantastic, and to the point where, again, Mike said the same thing. He said, but he blended he blended episode 9 and 10 together. It was all like one in his mindset. But even family members have said to me they absolutely adore that episode because I think it's more natural in a way. Because you've got, I don't know, it starts all the podcasts all start off quite ropey for me. And it's not a nerves thing. It's just it's not between, like, say, like our one, it did start off ropey, I would say, and it's not because of who I'm interviewing. It's just because I know that it's going on the internet. It's the biggest thing. It's every time. It's a very hard thing to overcome.
Right. Yeah, I can understand that.
That's been spot on, Patrick.
Yeah, it's been great.
I've really enjoyed that, and hopefully it won't be our last time speaking to you anyway. Or I say
Mhm.
our, my last time speaking to you, because yeah, again, it's still early days of me realizing I'm on my own.
Uh,
Um, but no, hopefully it won't be the last time. Fingers crossed for next Thursday. I thought it was Friday. I think I said it Friday as well, but Runner Man Steve did let me know in my DMs that it's Thursday. The emails come out, so we'll keep our
yeah,
fingers crossed for
I hope so. Yeah.
London entries. But if not, I'm sure at some stage, I'll either be in the States or you'll have an event over here at one of these
Mhm.
not running a marathon again that will come up.
Yeah, definitely. I think so. I think that'll be good.
Spot on. And anyone listening, as I said a couple of times, have a look at Patrick's website. He doesn't want to toot his own trumpet here with his blog, but go and have a read. Read through some of the past posts, and also the fresh from the oven Copenhagen digest will be good to see. But otherwise, thank you very much, Patrick. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. It was great.
You've got my permission to go and speak to Ryan now.
Okay, thank you. He might not want me after listening to this
Oh
one.
no, he definitely will. He definitely will. His questions are more streamlined than mine, anyway. Like I said before the interview, I absolutely loved speaking with Patrick. Like Mike from episode 2, I know Patrick was very, very anxious about how this episode would come out and how our chat would sound. Having edited that section, I can confidently say he sounded spot on. I loved listening back once again and refreshing my memory of the discussion of the topics that we covered and everything that Patrick said. As Patrick mentioned in the interview, he has a spot on outlook on life. He is so positive to not only myself, but the whole running community. He always has the nicest comments, the nicest DMs, and he just absolutely radiates that positivity, which uplifts the community as a whole. I feel it's super important to have a nice positive outlook on life wherever you can. And I know we have our roller coaster up and down of emotions, but life is short. We need less anger. We need more love. We need more positive outlooks on life, much like Patrick has. So if you take anything from this episode, take positivity and wherever possible, radiate it around you. But before I go and tend to my war wounds and make sure not to split my stitches, let's talk about what to expect from the episode ahead. Episode 5 will see a slight difference to the guest roster, being that we'll have our first company in to talk to us. They have, however, been guests on the What the Fartlek podcast recently, so it won't be a first for them. They also partnered with ourselves for our season 1 giveaway. That in itself should give away who to expect. Craig from Runner. Runner are in fact one of my favourite brands out there, especially when it comes to technical running vests. They are, however, so much more than just a clothing brand, with values and beliefs set firmly in protecting the environment through planting trees, to their monthly charity fundraising events, Miles for Mind, of course, for the Mind charity. Unfortunately, the interview was meant to take place last night, but because I had my slight operation, I had to delay it last minute. So I'm looking forward to speaking to Craig next week. It will be the night before the episode comes out, so fingers crossed I can get everything done and I can get it out on time, but you might want to keep a close eye on social media just in case. Let's keep the faith that I will have episode 5 ready for you on time as expected. Finally, there have been some additions to the Point 99 podcast family in form of a Facebook page and Discord server. Discord-wise, as expected and mentioned in the last episode, the uptake hasn't been massive. I didn't expect it would be that big. It is a new app, and I know a lot of people are scared of jumping into something that is a bit of an unknown. As always, it's been awesome to see some of the familiar faces of the 99 community joining in on Discord. Your likes of your Bob Barrels, your Control Alt Delees, Mike the Pole Fit Ultra Runner, Patrick, our guest today, Han Van Ventures, and Dewey. It is limited to who's joined, but I would encourage you, if you want to try something new, you want to get involved in what I hope to be vibrant discussions, but also some voice communications in the chat groups. It would be great to have you. Don't feel the pressure. It's there if you want to join. It's free and you'll be made to feel more than welcome. For the Facebook page, if you do have Facebook, please consider dropping it a like. It does so much for the podcast and myself. Information wise, it'll be very, very similar to the Instagram page, maybe with a few curveballs and additions thrown in for good measure. But any likes and shares do so much for myself and the podcast as a whole. You can find the Facebook page as usual at facebook.com/the.99 podcast. And since I haven't done it for a while, if you do want to get in contact, my DMs are always open on my own page at Mr_Steve_runs, on the Instagram page for the podcast at the.99 podcast. Our email address is the.99podcast@gmail.com, but you can also find all relevant links in our link tree in the Instagram page profile. But there we go. I think that's enough for this episode. It was fantastic speaking to Patrick. As I've already said, it'd be fantastic to have him back. I'm also looking forward to speaking to Craig from Runner in episode 5. Feel more than welcome to let me know what you thought about the episode. And if you haven't already and you did enjoy it, please consider dropping us a like on whatever platform you are on, or even a quick review. But until the next time, I hope you stay safe, enjoy your runs, and you'll hear from me soon.